Matt Bennet, Central North, Matt was part of the operation. He also does a drainage marketing service. You will see him a lot on different TV shows, radio programs. You see him come on the classic. He makes his rounds. He does profit point cities for us. The channel, we get to see this about once every few weeks, but he also puts a lot of email updates. If you guys hear from him today, you like what you hear, or don't like what you hear, but you're everyone anyway, we can get you signed up for his email service, and you can get those same emails that we do. With that, Matt, lay this over. All right.
How many of you guys feel like you did a good job marketing last year? You did? What did you do?
Sold $14 in December and $4.5.
So, you did a job. I'm not hiring you. Actually, we were pretty aggressive as well. Anybody get the newsletter that's in here? Man, we need to get you on it. It's free. It's I talk about what we're doing marketing wise. I mean, where I'm from is literally about 4.5 hours due east. So if you get southeast of Decatur, Illinois, I'm down in there right between 36 and 70, just like you guys are. We farm a pretty good chunk of our ground right before a glacier stop, about 2/3 of it, and 1/3 of it on the back side of that. So farm a little bit of everything. To be honest with you, the stuff on the north side of the glacier stop is just pretty darn good. So we're very fortunate where we're at, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows by any means. We've got a little bit of everything. We're going to talk a little bit about markets. I'm going to move through fairly quickly, but I'll give you a chance to get the PowerPoint if you want. And if you got questions, of course, we'll answer them. But grain sell, how much more downside risk can there be? People before today said, well, beans got to be done going down, correct? I mean, you look and see what happened today. They actually closed off the road, but made a new local move, actually. Not a very pretty day. But we did bounce a little bit, and then risk management's more than the price of corn and beans. I've been harping on this the last couple of years. And I think whenever you were selling over here, that's the kind of time that we wanted to be selling. And here's why. If you were looking at for either the 23 or the 24 crop, when do we typically, if you're buying dry fertilizer, when do you typically prepay? When do most people prepay? Don't all speak at once or anything. Farm progress show time is kind of what I say. A lot of guys prepay in that type of time frame if they're buying some dry fertilizer. What do we know if the price of corn is high? What else is high? That's all there is to it, right? What if fertilizer is high? Does that mean corn's high? No. That's the thing that really stinks. And so we've been harping the last 2 years, going into fall of 22, going into fall of 23. Hey, if you're buying and you're spending all this money on fertilizer, why in the world aren't we selling some corn? And I'm not money on a quarterback if you by any means. You'll get the chance once again to have high prices of corn inflate fertilizer. It's not fun to think about sometimes, but you'll get that opportunity again. And so what are we going to do with it at that point? That's the reason why we were pretty darn aggressive. And I did write about it in the newsletter. It's all archived. You can get to it if you want to. What adjustments do we need to be making? And a lot of the adjustments we were just talking about in the last presentation, obviously, you got to make some adjustments. But what kind of adjustments do we need to make in this environment, in the big picture? What do you guys think? Anybody?
Do with what you got.
Do with what you got. Is this a good environment to be buying new equipment? I don't know. I ask that question sometimes. I spoke for Case IH at Farm Progress Show this year, and I didn't say that. I'll tell you that. You got to know the room you're in, I guess. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to anybody. It's just sometimes we gotta sit here and think about what do we need to do and not do in this environment. And this is not how much profit can we latch onto. This is a balance sheet preservation type environment we're in right now. And mean, you better not even make a mistake about it. We have to be very cautious in what we do. And bottom line is 25, if we don't have a major weather issue, you guys think that we're all gonna make money? What do you guys think? I know some of you guys don't like me very much already, right? If you guys need a beer, there's a beer back there too, by the way. But 25 could be tough, correct? It could be a challenge, and so we have to be very, very cautious, first of all, and then second of all, we have to have a game plan. What are we gonna do? You know, if we get lucky and you get some sort of weather issue develop in South America. Because, you know, corn went last week to 450, right? And I'll tell you what, a lot of people were calling me, how much more do you think we can get? How much more do you think we can get? What should you be thinking about whenever the market goes to a level we haven't seen in a long time? How much should I maybe be selling? You know? How many of you guys have a hedge account? Anybody? Surely you guys will understand this. I kind of like this slide. It's a little dark, but I think it's fun. You guys are a tough crowd. Some of the young people in the room are scratching their heads right now. They don't know what this is. But I've had people ask me, what is that slide all about? I said, just, you know, you figure it out. Price summary. Everything at the top on the far right, and I'm sorry if I get your way. Everything at the top on the far right's got a negative in front of it. Deflationary environment as far as commodities are concerned. That's all there is to it. How many people in here raise cattle? I do as well. Thank goodness some of us have cattle. Diversification sure is a nice thing right now. But bottom line is everything that we raise is deflationary. 1 year ago, if I'd have been sitting in this room, you'd have seen the exact same thing, which is negatives in front of everything at the top line. 2 straight years of deflationary environment. It's a tough deal. Principal crop acres. What do I think is going to happen? Last year we lost a few principal crop acres. Why do you think we lost principal crop acres whenever actually the spring was a pretty decent spring? What do you guys think? I think once you start making less money, what typically happens? You see a few acres exit the mix. That's all there is to it. Well, you go back to 2015 through 2018, and how many of us were making lots of money in 2015 through 2018? That wasn't exactly the golden age of agriculture, guys, was it? You say, well, hey, we jumped right back up here in 2023 at the same acres as 2015 through 18. But guys, we've got less tillable acres that are even available to plant now than what we had back then. Correct or incorrect? We're losing tillable acreage every single year. And I'm not casting stones here. I live in a little town called Windsor. We have a farm that butts up to the edge of town. Okay, it's 2 blocks away from a substation. So who do you think I've been hearing from the last several months, last couple of years? Solar companies. First people that started calling me 18 months ago said they'd offer me $1,200 an acre, you know, for they didn't know how many acres, but $1,200 an acre. That farm, my dad and I bought that farm for $4,500 an acre. $1,200 an acre doesn't sound too bad, right? I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. And if you've done it, I've got no issue with it. I've got cousins that have. Let me tell you this. Right now, the highest offer I've got is $3,300 an acre. Now, should I look at that? I'm kind of done if I don't, right? I mean, I know there's caveats you got to understand, but we're losing tillable farm ground. Who's not losing tillable farm ground? What country is gaining tillable farm ground every year? Brazil. Absolutely right. All right, let's look at the funds real quick. The funds are very long corn. Okay? They're long corn. Bottom line is you look over here at soybeans, we've got a bit of a long position. They've just gotten into a long position. Funds, big money players. What do they want to invest in? Why are they investing in corn? That's a big question. If I look, it's the largest net long from the fund since February of 23, almost 2 years since they've had this long of a position. And again, why would we be buying corn? I mean, that's the question, okay? But bottom line is they've seen an incentive that this corn market could potentially rally, all right? So as we get into corn, we'll talk more about it. If I look at the dollar, though, the U.S. dollar again closed up today, which was almost 107 on the index. A strong U.S. dollar means what for us? What does it make hard to sell? Anything that we're exporting, correct? And so a strong U.S. dollar is not what we want to see. And furthermore, we're at a 22-year low on the Brazilian real versus the dollar. Okay? And what have people been saying about Brazil this year, what their production is going to look like? What have they been saying? You guys know? Anyone? Massive production. So once they have this gigantic bean crop, if it does come to pass, what's going to happen to the U.S. export program for soybeans, do you think? Our beans are going to be too expensive. That's all there is to it. And so those will come to a screeching halt. Now, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but this slide is something that I love, and I decided I was going to use it for all of 2024. You see me next year, I'll have to find something new. This is the producer's attempt at profitability in 2024. That's about how close we got. So let's look at world corn supply and use. World corn supply and use. Basically, beginning stocks are 304 over here in the upper left hand, middle is 296.4. We've drawn down world stocks slightly. I want to compare this to soybeans when we get a chance to get to soybeans, but look at ending stocks year over year, down 20 million tons because usage goes up almost 20 million tons. This is a good thing. I mean, I can sit here and be bearish all day long, guys. I've got a lot of bearish info for you. I don't want to be a bear, but this is not bad. This is not a bad development. Because if you want to get a market fired up and rallying, do you want it to be based upon a supply disruption or an increase in demand? Which one do you want to choose? There you go. Because demand's got staying power, right? We built this base, and now we got to feed that thing. The bottom line is this. You build this big demand base, what happens with the crop failure? Well, 2012 happens. Right? Because you got ethanol, boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, supply disruption. What happens? You got $8 corn. Worst thing that freaking happened to us, though. $8 corn. So if you come to me and say, oh, we need $6 to $7 corn again, I'm going to say, why don't you pump the brakes on that? Because what happens with $6 to $7 corn? What else goes up? Everything. Everything. And now we're feeling the effects of it. U.S. corn supply and demand, 1.738 billion bushels is not a small number. That's what the USDA came out with last week, is they increased demand 200. That's a huge increase in the month of December. It's unprecedented. We usually don't see this. And so what the USDA said, they said exports were so strong, we're going to go up 150, and ethanol grind was so strong, we're going to go up 50 million bushels. Okay? And so we can go through this and go through this, but I just want to show you right here, don't even try to read this. At the far right, I've got the USDA number, 1.737, 1.738. This is the spreadsheet that I use to forecast USDA reports for Bloomberg, Reuters, and all that stuff. So it's a running total. It gives me a ton of information. Here's what I did with this. I went ahead and I took exports up to 2.5 billion bushels, because we can make the case for that right now. I kept yield the same. It gives me 1.714 billion bushels. The next column to the left, though, I took yield down to 182. Why would I take yield down to 182? A yield at 182, is essentially a 1.621 billion bushel stop something. Okay? You guys think 1.621 billion bushels of corn is bullish? What do you guys think? Anybody? I mean, I don't think it's bullish. Okay? Here's what I think. It's better than 2.2 that we were talking about forever, correct? But it's not bullish. So now you've got to kind of adjust your frame of mind. What kind of rally might you expect? What kind of rally might you set your sights on if this market does start to turn? And yes, we guys, December corn was 385 now. We bounced 50-some cents off that low. I have had a lot of people here in the last several days saying, you think I ought to think about selling some corn. And I'm thinking, okay, what was the bounce in your cash price from the low to the high? 50 and 60 cents for a lot of folks. And so you got to ask yourself, if I'm not selling corn, I'm not selling corn with 50-cent bounce, right? I mean, you got to ask yourself those questions. This is not a bullish situation, but the trend of higher stocks and stocks to usage ratio in the U.S. has actually taken a bit of a downturn with this increase in demand that you can see on the upper right, the upper chart. The lower chart shows you that as far as the world's concerned, we're not running out of corn, but guess what? We continue to ratchet down stocks. And when you continue to ratchet down stocks, now all of a sudden you're in a vulnerable position that at some point, a supply disruption could certainly cause you to get a rally that you weren't necessarily expecting. So it's not such a bad thing. There's what yields look like. Missouri at 182, Illinois at 218. But I put this up here, and here's the reason why. Why do I think we could go down to 182? I've got a couple different reasons, but Illinois was originally forecasted at 2 1/4. Okay? Did we have a good crop? Yeah, we had a good crop. I'm not going to complain about it. They took 7 bushel off that thing. Where did that all go? Why did we take 7 bushel off the crop? What do you guys think? What was one of the biggest things we did? Dry harvest. Were you guys dry in August? We were dry in August as well, and I think your average producer saw a couple different things happen. You saw moisture contents come down. In some cases, I had a guy from Nebraska send me a picture of 11.5% corn he was harvesting. And he said he hadn't even gotten to 13% on wheat. Okay, that adds up. We just talked about 12% down to 9% means 5 bushels. Bottom line is we lost some bushels. We lost some dry matter. And so if you look at total corn production, I just skipped over acres. What do you guys think on acres this next year? We can go over it in a little bit again, but you guys think corn acres will be up or down for next year? Anybody? You guys are so talkative tonight. Come on. I'm gonna try to fly through this. I need a little cooperation.
Down.
Down? Okay, I think they're gonna be up. Not just to be a contrarian, I just think they're gonna be up. And the reason I think they're gonna be up is because a lot of people are looking at over the beans at $10 saying, how the heck can I make this work? Right? And so, it's gonna be anybody's guess. Now let's look at total production. Biggest all-time record yield, easily. But we didn't have all-time record production because of acres. So I guess the question is, what if acres go up to 93 or 4? Then the pundits are going to be saying, hey, what if we have another 180 bushel crop, right? And so you got to be a little cautious just to make the assumption. Now, why do I think yield could come down once again? Bushels per acre and yield. Years per acre is in the blue, yield is in the red, okay? Which one of these years looks different than the other? 2024, right? What is this suggesting is that our years were humongous, correct? I don't know about you guys, but I was dry going into July, and we had about 7 inches of rain in July. Okay? Unbelievable amount of rain. Did we have big years? Yeah, we did. But is it enough to be that much of an anomaly? I don't know. Okay, so let's say you come in here in the January report, and you drop it down to 182, you get carried down to 1.6, and you get a little 20, 30-cent jump in the market. What should we be thinking about doing? Maybe rewarding the market with some corn. I don't know. That'd be my opinion. There's South American production. Back in 2010, they had 86 million metric tons of corn. This year, they're forecast to produce 100 million tons more corn than what they did just 14 years ago. Okay? It's a significant increase in production. And so bottom line is, these guys are going to continue to grow. If you look at corn exports, you continue to stay at a very strong pace. Not only export sales, but shipments. Shipments of corn already this year have run greatly in excess of a year ago, which is impressive. Shipments is what we're sending down the river for the most part. You can take some out the Pacific Northwest and a few loads go out of the Great Lakes. But why would it be impressive that we've shipped a lot of corn through the Mississippi River over the last few weeks? Huh? The river's what? The river's low. And so the problem is we've gotten so low recently that there's been talk that you're not going to be able to load barges all the way. And so what's that do for costs? Increase your costs. It makes it much less efficient. So shipments have been good. You look at exports over the course of time, and we've lost. South America's in the green. We were in the blue, and we were the main game, right? And over the course of time, we've lost these exports, but we've bridged the gap a little bit between last year and this year. And right now, we're running around 25 million metric tons below what South America is. So that's still a pretty big amount of corn that we're running behind them on. But the bottom line is, we've been fairly competitive here. A lot of it's had to do with the fact we've had a lot of corn to export. So it's a really good thing. Now there's your March corn chart. I did this as of this morning before I left, so it doesn't include today's price change. But one thing that you saw last week, that blue line almost all the way towards the right, after the report came out, you had a 200 million bushel drop in corn stalks. The market went up and tested the yellow line, which is called a 200-day moving average. We have been at or above the 200-day moving average 6 times since October of 23. All right, so what has happened is we've continued to steadily decline this market. If you can't bust through it with a 200 million bushel drop in stocks, what's it going to take to bust through it and go higher? And that's the question. What would be the answer? The answer would be you're going to have to get the C word involved. What's the C word? Huh? China. If China would, I wish I could say it like Trump, because I don't know, I mean, it's just kind of funny how he says it. But you get them to buy corn, and that could change things a little bit. There's no doubt about it. The other thing would be what? South American production. Now here's the deal. They produce the bulk of their corn in the safrinha crop. That's after this first soybean crop. But the first soybean crop got planted in a very, very timely fashion. Why is that important? Because the safrinha crop typically has a dry season starting right on the heels of pollination. And we all know what that is like whenever you get dry after pollination. If you get the crop planted on time, you've got a better chance to build ear. So bottom line is we've got to see what this South American production looks like. That's December 25 corn. As you can see, we ratcheted up in and around the report, and now we've kind of back off again, and we're 440 in the low. I think earlier today we were 439. I believe it closed around 440. 440 again is no beauty queen, but at the same time, 440, in my opinion, is better than a $10 over beans. And so we'll look at the ratio as we get farther into this. I am concerned that December 25 corn will struggle if Brazil has the kind of crop that we're forecasting right now. The other thing that could make it struggle would be what we're going to talk about next, which is soybeans. You look at soybeans, world production is up 32 million tons year over year. So it's a big increase in production. Most of this, of course, is coming out of Brazil. You look at world soybean supply and use at the upper left-hand corner, once again, you've got 101 million tons of soybeans. The forecast from the USDA is that Brazil's crop size is what they're forecasting now, which would be an average to above average crop. It's not a bumper crop they're forecasting. They're saying that we're going to get to 131.9 million metric tons of soybeans, up from 101. So in the course of 2 marketing years, you're going to take stocks of soybeans worldwide up 30%. Now, if I told you we're going to go up 30% on anything commodity related, what would you say the price of that commodity is going to do? It's going to go down. So the big question is, how much of this is already in the market? This isn't new news, correct? I mean, could we bounce somewhere here? Absolutely. But right now, if that crop, if it's a 170, which is forecasted, or a 175, which is potential, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. Now, you look at the U.S. balance sheet, 470 million bushels of soybeans, a lot of beans. My personal opinion is we're going to see this stocks number go to around 500 million bushels or more, because I do think that our exports will fall off once Brazil kind of comes into the mix. I can't really tell you any good news from this balance sheet, because the bottom line with this balance sheet is that maybe you do drop yield. I mean, you guys think we could see yield go down again in January? I mean, I think it's possible. Why? 12% to 9%, right? We lost bushels in August, guys. That's all there is to it. I don't know how, I mean, with my newsletter, I always say, I want to kind of hear from you, you know, what do your yields look like versus what you're expecting? What do your yields look like versus a year ago? And overwhelmingly, I heard from growers who said, based upon what I was looking at the end of July and pod counts, I was very disappointed with my soybean yields. I heard it over and over and over. Now, what's the yield going to come in at? I think it's anyone's guess. I think it's going to drop back maybe another half a bushel, maybe a bushel. It's not going to get us in a bullish situation, but it gets us a little bit tighter. Problem with beans, though, is you're trending higher on stocks, the stocks-to-use ratio in the U.S. And then you look here on the world, and most likely you're going to see the largest amount of soybeans we've ever seen in the world for stocks. And it's very possible your stocks to use. And I keep talking stocks to use. Why is stocks to use so important? How much do you have versus how much you're using? So if I'm buying soybeans, if I'm an originator of soybeans and I'm buying them on the river in St. Louis, what am I concerned with? Stocks to use ratio. Because you want to know how many beans are available versus what are being used. That's what determines price. So if stocks to use ratio goes up, what should happen with price? It should most likely move lower. There's your soybean yields. Once again, I think Illinois started at 67. Most states came in below where we originally forecasted in August. There's your U.S. production. I think it's important to note that over the course of time, we've gone up about 10% since 2015. All right? Big crop, no questions asked. South America since 2010. We can go to 2015, they're at 169 up to about 238. But since 2010, they've basically gone up again, 100 million tons of production. All right, so Brazil has continued to grow. You know, I was at a conference in Iowa, probably 5-6 years ago now, and a group of growers from Brazil were out there, and one of them, their family conglomerate farmed about 400,000 acres. A large operation, clearly. And Max Armstrong was moderating the panel, and he asked him, what were your gross proceeds last year? He said, 250 million-ish. Okay? He said, well, what was your profit margin? He said, 35%. Why do you think he's wanting to grow? Because he made $90 million the year before. Right? Do the math, guys. Now last year was the first year we saw a Brazilian grower hurt, so to speak. We heard about a lot of credit crunches down there. We heard about a lot of folks that were having issues. Why? Because the price of beans plummeted last year. Okay? Will that demand, or will that increase in acreage slow down? Your guess is as good as mine. This year they're planting 3% more acres of beans. And that's a year after they had such problems with money. And here's your world situation on world exports. If I look at this, at 46 million tons for the U.S. and 120 million tons for South America, do you guys agree, after what I just said, that Brazil's going to continue to grow more soybeans? Most likely. So what would happen to our world export share? Most likely, it'll continue to dwindle. So what do we need to see if we're not able to export as many beans out of the country? What do we need to see happen? Huh? Domestic consumption. Where would that come from? Crush. And for what? Renewable diesel. Correct? And that's one big demand driver potential. We have to see the renewable fuels initiative that our government stands behind here in the U.S. If we don't, it's going to be some tough sledding at times. That's simply all there is to it. Again, you see sales running in advance of a year ago, nothing like corn. Shipments have been awfully good as well. See shipments about 16% ahead of a year ago, which once again is very impressive considering the condition of the river. You see crush margins here, crush margins 90 cents a bushel as of last week. So Central Illinois crush margins, I mean, these are going to be pretty similar throughout the Corn Belt. What are we talking about? We're crushing soybeans. What are we crushing them for? Meal and oil, right? Bottom line is, in the past, you always crush beans for meal. You've had to figure out what to do with the oil. Now, we're crushing beans for both. Let's be honest about it. We want the oil, but part of the reason why this soybean oil market, as you can see over here, we made this big peak, about $49. What broke the soybean oil, the palm oil, and the world vegetable oil market? Does anybody know in here? Because they all broke at the same time. What rallied them to begin with? Strong demand for renewable diesel, first of all. Second of all, Indonesia and Malaysia had an off palm oil crop. Wasn't very good. Okay? And we're using oil to make renewable diesel. And then California, who's been the driver of this renewable diesel situation, says, hey, stop. We're going to go to 20% seed oils at the maximum for the formulation for renewable diesel. So I ask you, how much soybean oil can you put in into renewable diesel as far as the formulation. Do you know what percentage? It can go up to what? Does anybody know? 100%. 100%. 20% for B20, clearly, and that's not too hard to figure out. I would have asked the question, but I knew you guys wouldn't answer, so I wasn't going to ask you anything. No offense, it's just you guys have been super responsive so far. Soybean meal is at the lowest level we've seen since COVID. Soybean meal is the lowest level we've seen since COVID. So if you're buying soybean meal, if you're putting it into your rations, I don't think it's a bad time to go ahead and get some coverage. Why? Because and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but Argentina, if they get dry, why is that important for soybean meal market? Does anybody know? Argentina historically has exported 50% or more of the world's soybean meal. That's their calling card. So if Argentina gets dry, what typically happens is soybean meal market rallies, closely followed by the soybean market. Maybe we can see something like that happen. This particular slide shows you exports have dwindled over the last 5 years, while crush continues to go higher over the last 10 years. And so as crush continues to grow, what it does is it puts us in a situation where, let's say someone doesn't want to buy beans off of us. Someone who buys a lot of beans, who would that be? China. If China gets their nose out of joint and says, we don't want to buy U.S. beans, we're just trying to go to Brazil. Then if we're using our beans domestically, we can say, hey, good for you. We've got beans to sell if you want them, but we're using them domestically. We can care less what you guys do. And my personal opinion is that's what we've got to work towards. That's what if we are ever going to get into a political discussion with anybody, it's renewable fuels. That's all there is to it. There's your soybean chart. And thank God I made this slide before today, because that thing right there is a floor. And it was holding steady. 975 front month futures. We've seen it hold and hold and hold. Like 10 times. And then what happened today? We broke through. Now, some people thought if we broke through, we're going to $9 in a heartbeat. Didn't happen. Okay? Could have happened tomorrow. Absolutely. I'm just telling you, whenever you see this much support, it holds forever and it breaks the dam. Sometimes you got to be really cautious as to assume how low this market could go. Typically, a market is going to go way too low. Why? Because of who I talked about a little bit ago, the funds. They want to chase a market to push it down and provide all the pain they can for people who are bullish beans. And once those two people finally pull their bets off and say, to heck with it, that's when the funds get out and take the profits. How many of you guys have been so aggravated with markets over the last few weeks, and whenever you sell, what happens the next day? What usually happens the day after you sell? Well, it goes up. But some of you guys might go home tonight and say, that guy sounded just a little bearish. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go ahead and sell some corn and beans. And wouldn't you know, market's going to go up 20 cents by the end of the week because that freaking Bennett guy, I hope he never comes back. Right? Right? But the problem is when that's how we market, when are we ever going to sell anything? If we're worried about what tomorrow's going to bring. I mean, we got a market based upon profit and break evens. That's your November bean market again. November beans is a big problem for December corn. What is the incentive for December corn to rally when November beans are $10 or below? Do they need to buy acres? No. It's almost a hot potato game this year. And I'm not trying to be cute. I'm saying, I don't know. People ask me which one of these is more profitable. I say neither. For a lot of people right now, it's tough. You've got to be a little more creative. You've got to be more efficient in what you do. I like the idea of not doing everything up front and potentially feeding this crop as you go, because if you sit here and you throw way too much money at a crop and you don't end up getting anything out of it, guys, we can't burn equity every year. We can't burn working capital every year. We've got to be very calculated in what we do. So I really like what he was talking about with feeding the crop as you go. All right, now, what do you think of this slide, guys? It's one of my favorites. And I'm not anti-EV, I'll tell you what. If I had one of these, I wouldn't have been able to get over here without stopping charge this morning, okay? And that's fine, it is what it is. I think they've got a place. I think there's a lot of good things about electric vehicles, but what has electrical vehicles brought about over the course of the last few years? Did the big oil, big energy people like ethanol historically? No. Does big oil like renewable diesel? That's a trick question. And here's the thing. California went to where you couldn't buy anything but what? Renewable diesel. So if I'm sitting here and I'm an energy company, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose what? Market share. And guess what? They've got tax credits, incentives to build these crush plants and to produce renewable diesel. Okay, so if I'm a big energy company and I'm going to lose market share and these plants have tax credits applied to them, what might I do? You can't beat them. What do you have to do? And if you look at the plants that have been built, guys, these crush plants have big oil money behind them. Okay? So big oil, do you think big oil wants electrical vehicles to succeed? Now they're here to stay, correct? I mean, we can all agree on that. How much they grow is another question. So big oil is in bed with renewable diesel. Alright? They've made the move. Okay? Big oil and ethanol, guys, they're actually cozying up. Why? Because they've all got a common foe. Engine manufacturers. Guys, they're trying to get more efficient. It's good for all of us. It really is. But the bottom line is this ethanol thing right now, thank goodness we see huge exports. It's a big deal for us to see huge ethanol exports because the ethanol industry, if we stay at 10, 12%, bottom line is you are not going to see a demand growth with EV growing all the time. If the government comes out and says we're E15 tomorrow, it changes things. And I'll tell you who did that. You guys know who did that. We're going to go E15 like in 2-3 months. Like 3 or 4 years ago, you know who did that? Brazil. Why? Because Brazil knows that agriculture is the backbone of their entire country. All right, and I would sure like to see us get to a point where we can see the same sort of decision making come in, especially for rural America, because if we don't have renewable fuels, we're in some trouble. There's what the EIA, okay, so you've got USDA, but I'm talking EIA, so energy. These folks are saying that renewable is going to plateau. All right, most likely that's what you're going to see is that we don't see this humongous growth we've seen before. And when would we see it? Whenever we come out with a renewable fuel standard that is supportive, for not only renewable diesel, but guys, sustainable aviation fuel. We've got one plant right now that's producing sustainable aviation fuel here in the U.S. It's in Georgia. Are they using corn-based ethanol? No, we're using sugarcane ethanol that's been shipped from Brazil. How much sense does that make? How many of you guys have been waiting to hear the news on 45Z for the last 7 months? Trying to figure out, hey, what might we do to be able to qualify for this program? And what did they say? Well, we're not making out anything. We're going to kick the can down the road. It's super aggravating. So here's the soybean to corn ratio. It's a multi-year low for soybean to corn ratio, which means when this thing dips down below a 2.3 or even a 2.25 to 1, what does this suggest is going to happen to acres? It's going to swing to corn. Okay? That is what this suggests. If we look, as of right now, they're near seasonal lows as far as this ratio is concerned. But U.S. and global supply suggests corn is tighter than beans. Okay? Relatively speaking. So it says these ratios would suggest the market is trying to buy corn acres. And I don't know how hard it's working to try to buy corn acres. That's the thing. Because if you see, what's rallying more than December corn is nearby. And you want to know why nearby corn is rallying more than December corn? Because the funds are buying corn. If the funds buy corn, your big money players, they buy nearby contracts. They don't worry about the deferreds. That's why. Any of you know what I'm talking about whenever I say that spreads are tight? So like the difference between March to May to July, July to December, spreads are tight. Would you ever, you're shaking your head yes, would you ever have guessed with a 1.7 billion bushel carryout, the spreads would be as tight as what they are right now? Absolutely not. It makes zero sense. This has been a very hard market to figure out. So if you look at U.S. plantings, currently, my prediction is that combination where you've been hovering around 178's been the cap. I think you're going to lose a combination. Like if you look at corn and soybeans last year, it was what, 91 and 86. You're going to lose the combination of corn and bean acres this year, is my prediction. I don't think it's going to be drastic. But why would you? Because typically, historically, if profit margins aren't good, people find something else to plant where they can. And in some parts of the country, they let ground lay fallow. And I've never been in some of those areas until I started working with Shannon. I'm talking in western Kansas and the Panhandle, Texas, and I'm like, what are you doing in this field this next year? Well, we're going to let it lay fallow. What kind of an idiot lets it ground lay fallow? Well, listen, we got to build it up. You got to build it up. Commodity prices aren't good enough right now. I'm afraid you're going to lose the combination, and corn acres are going to go up from this year, is my prediction. Right now, I would say you're going to go from 91 million corn acres to 94, 93, 94. And I think that bean acres probably lose around 4 million, is my current estimate. And you look at South America, there are some concerns with too much rainfall in southern Brazil. Argentina had a bit of a dry week, but guys, they're not done planting. And how many of us want to be wet during planting? That's another thing. This market rallied, if you remember, in the month of August into September, the bean market rallied. You guys want to know why the bean market rallied? Because Brazil was dry. And guess what? It was their dry season. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Brazil's dry. They're not even supposed to be planting yet. They're dry in their dry season. So you guys know who Eric Snodgrass is? I'm sure some of you guys know who he is. Don't you? Forecaster, he's fantastic. He was on our webinar one day. He said, Brazil's supposed to be dry right now. None of the stuff in the environment tells me they're going to be too dry. You're going to get some rainfall in October. They're going to have a normal planting pace. They had a normal planting pace, and all of a sudden, $11 no 24 beans went bye-bye. And now we're $1 lower. And so sometimes we've got to be a student of what's going on here with this market. I'm not saying you sell a bunch of beans for a crop that you haven't even thought about planting yet. But sometimes at least putting a measure of protection at a level that you can live with makes some sense. You look at USDA said, of course, Mato Grosso, which is in Brazil, a huge producer, running well in advance of where they were on average, let alone a year ago. And so the reason why I bring this up is we've had about 3 straight years where the bean markets rallied this time of year. This gentleman over here sold soybeans at $14. How do you do such a thing? Well, you have what I would call a new seasonal develop in this market. Why? Because who's raising more soybeans and exporting more soybeans in the world? The U.S. or Brazil and South America as a whole? Which one? South America. So December into July is like July, or into January is like July into August for them, correct? Why wouldn't the market rally if you had weather issues? The problem this year, we don't have a weather issue down there right now. You know, if you look right now, Brazil rains were good last week. Argentina rains were confined to the north. There is concern about building Argentina dryness. It could possibly impact the market. If you get that, guys, and this market rallies, given everything we've looked at from a stock standpoint, if you've got old beans, please consider having an offer. Just an offer. If you've got 100, let's say you got 10,000 bushels of beans. Maybe you sell a couple, 3,000 if the market goes up 30 cents. Maybe you sell a couple, 3 more if it goes up another 30 cents. Incremental selling into a rally, in my history of doing this marketing thing, has been my best possible plan I can do, because here's what you do. You put the offer in now. You don't wait till the day up, because how many of you guys will put an offer in and then you call a guy and you pull the offer? Has anybody ever done that? I call it a cancel if close offer. I got that thing's close, we gotta pull it, right? And I know it's kind of funny because it's not funny, but put the offer in at a level you can live with and let it execute. Because 9 times out of 10 you got more beans or corn to sell. First of all, second of all, if you sold out old stuff, what are you long still? Next year's crop. Farmers always long. Correct? You always have stuff to sell. Farmer returns in Central Illinois. This is where it kind of stinks. But this was as of 6 to 8 weeks ago. I'm gonna call around 7 weeks ago, Farm Doc team, which they cover lots of states, but they do cover this part of Illinois. These are FBFM numbers, which is actual numbers that they do accounting for. So these are real numbers. They said the actual farmer return was clearly in the red. If you look, their prediction that we were gonna be $130 in the red. Okay, so if Illinois had a 218 yield, what did I say cash prices have come up from the low? How much? 16, right? Cash price of 60 cents, right? Okay, so if they come up 60 cents, let's just do easy math. You had 250 bushel corn, and I'm not saying you did, but some people did, clearly, in Illinois, right? That's $160 an acre. Why wouldn't we be thinking about selling when the market's finally decided to rally for us? Correct? Now, I'm not saying that there's not going to still be some folks that lose some money on 24. But if I have a bunch of corn sitting over, and I just got a 60-cent rally in flat cash price, I think the smart money would be, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take a hold of some of this, pay off my interest. Guys, it's costing us an interest alone around 3 cents a bushel to hold on corn. Just an interest, let alone if you're paying commercial storage. Okay? So be cautious in how you look at that. These guys are saying for 2025, cash rent's going down. Anybody in here's cash rent going down? But you're probably not going to raise your hand. I don't think anybody's raised their hand yet, but you're not going to on that one, right? I'll tell you a story back in 2012. The drought year, right? 2012, I go to church on Sunday mornings, and my landlady tells me, she's praying for me, but she remembers 1954. Anybody in here ever heard about 1954? Okay. She doesn't want me to go broke. She's concerned. She's worried about me. And I said, I'll be fine. I got crop insurance. I was paying her $200 an acre cash rent for the best piece of land I now own. Okay? So anyway, we get out to the end of the year, and I give her a second half of cash rent. And I said, I'm going to give you a bonus payment, $50 an acre. She said, what's this for? I said, I made more money than I made in my life this year. She said, well, next year I think we need to go to $275. That's a true story. I'm like, what a freaking idiot I was. But I was just trying to share the good fortune. But I don't know anybody who's cash rent. And we were talking about cash rent earlier. Guys, Central Illinois, a friend of mine just got 800 acres taken away from him in the last couple of months. They had a cash rent auction, and it went for $530 an acre. $530 an acre. You just marinated on that a little bit. If you look at fertilizer, what did it do after 21 and 22? It skyrocketed. Why did it skyrocket? Because most growers made more money in 21 and 22 back to back than what they'd ever made in their careers as an average in the corn belt. And so fertilizer skyrockets. If we put a number on it, in 2022, fertilizer equals chemical and seed. And so bottom line is, it's highly reactive. You guys have already talked about fertilizer prices. Potash is way too expensive. But here's one thing I love to show every time. 2018 to the forecast of 2025, the cost of money, the cost of interest on your operating capital has gone up 145% in that time period. Fertilizer has gone up 46%. Chemicals have gone up 55%. Seeds gone up 17%. Okay? And so I know we all like to laugh about it, but the bottom line is this, guys. In 21 and 22, whenever we had $6 and $7 corn, did most growers make really good money? What do you guys think? That's a clear yes. Is anybody in the room a little bit surprised, pleasantly, mind you, that your seed didn't go up more than what it did after that period of economic boom? And so the bottom line I'm going to tell you is this: as you talk about those ways that you can cut whenever you get into stuff that he just presented, how many of you want to cut on the quality of the seed? Guys, you can't take the ball out of your own hands. If I got to go to the bank on fertilizer, most of us, I think, put a lot of fertilizer on when we were making money. If I got to go to the bank there, it's one thing. But if I'm going to go to the bank and several different ways, it darn sure better not be received, because if it's under more stress than what it typically is, I darn sure better have to exceed. I don't, guys, I'm just here to speak, I'm not an employee of channel, I'm a contractor. And yes, I was here several years ago, and been there 10 years now. Farm income's obviously lower, decisions have to be analyzed for profitability, you cannot break even without bushels. And then, if you want my presentation, you can have it, you just can't redistribute it. So if you want to take a picture, or not take a picture, you have your camera hover, you click on the little yellow button thing, and then it will direct you. I will ask you if you want anything else. I'm not going to solicit you for anything. But you can have the slide deck, just please don't share it with everybody. We'll take questions. Does anybody have a question? What do I think tariffs will do to drain lines? I knew somebody was going to ask that. Okay, here's what I think of tariffs. Clearly, President Trump likes tariffs, right? Okay. What they did the last time, you've got to hope that there has been some learning done. Okay? That's a hope. I don't know. First of all. Second of all, whenever it comes to this tariff business, some of the folks that we talk to are telling us, mostly right now, it's a negotiation tactic. We're going to threaten this to try to elicit a response, right? If we don't get the response we want, then we're going to see whether the threat is for real or not. Okay? And I kind of look at it like a couple of guys. I used to drive a truck for my dad. We had training all day, so I drove a truck for my dad, and I would sit at 80 indicator on the CD radio, and there was always two guys that were going to whoop each other, right? And they're throwing threats back and forth. And it all boils down to, they really going to get out of the truck and fight, or they're not going to. And I think that's what this tariff thing, who knows? Are they really going to fight, or are they not going to? My personal opinion is, Canada is kind of a mess right now. You know, I mean, you hear about supposedly there's a lot of heat on Trudeau to step down. I don't know what will happen there, okay? Because they're a huge trade partner for us. If you have a trade war with Canada, get your potash bought, because we get a ton of potash out there. If you have a trade war with Mexico, they have by far and away bought more corn than anybody this year. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. And so obviously with China's already showed us they don't want to do business with us unless they absolutely have to. We already know that. So I hope they don't give them one more reason, quite frankly. No, I don't know. If we do get into an all-out trade war with tariffs and all works, guys, I mean, we're already talking bearish enough the way it is, right? And so one thing I will tell you is this. You are susceptible with the amount of money you've got invested in your crop right now, between now and the February crop insurance average is set. If you don't have something in place, you're susceptible to if these markets might collapse. What would make them collapse? Trade war. So be very cautious. That's my contact info. I'll take other questions if you want. And then that's my risk disclaimer. You can't hold me liable for anything I said this evening. Questions? Any other questions? We can talk cattle, whatever you want to talk. Any questions on anything?
Can you go back to your contact info?
Yeah. Any other questions?
You probably think Trump is worse for the farmers than the Democrats would be.
You know, it's tough to say, because here's the thing, it's very complicated, okay? And here's why it's complicated. The original trade war, okay? They did this phase one thing. Everybody's like, how's this going to impact anything, correct? When did our market start rallying? Corn market started rallying in August of 20. What happened in August of 20? Three big things, okay? The Ukraine conflict got started, the ratio in Iowa, and China bought about 15 million tons of corn. And then they followed that up again in January and bought corn. The way that they did tariffs, I don't agree with it, but the response that it ended up eliciting was actually something that we all benefited from, okay? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know which side's better. I think that both sides stink. to be totally honest with you. I don't know why we can't get some better choices, to be perfect. I mean, why would you? It's gonna ruin your life if you run it. They will ruin you, will they not? Everything that you've ever done in your life, they're going to go after you. I've got a first cousin, and he detailed Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court. He's got a pretty high level job. And you know what? They were really, really good friends. Okay? But he's as conservative as the day is long. But she comes from a different era where you can actually sit down and talk to someone that you don't agree with and be friends with them. And we don't have any of that. It's all nonsense. I don't even know. I'm going to get super fired up about politics. It just makes no sense. Why can't we figure out a way to sit down at the table instead of calling names, right? And try to get along with people, and then why can't we have some just sense of decency too? And I think that goes for both sides. Both sides really struggle with that. But as far as the farmer goes, I think that there's been a lot of times when we would say the Democrat is actually better for the farmer. At the same time, one thing Trump did that really kept the farm vote is when they knew they'd been hurt, and he said, we have to give them money. Guys, I don't want to farm for Trump bucks. I don't think any of us do. But whenever the government notices that we're hurting and they send money your way, it wins votes. That's the bottom line. And so it looks to me like this aid package is going to get passed. As far as right before I came on, I read an email. It looks like it's going to get passed. I don't know what to tell you about how I feel about that. I'll give you 1 second.
What they first presented.
105 bucks an acre for corn and 48 for beans. But I don't know. You know what they do lots of times? We're going to fund it at a 70% level. How much sense does that make? That's what they did last year with those that lost income from 2018 or 19 to 2021. You know that program? I don't remember what they called it. And we actually applied for it on our farm because we did lose income. And to be totally honest with you guys and transparent, the reason I lost money on the farm is because I had a couple of good years in my business. And from a tax standpoint, I held back my Schedule F. I went to my FSA guy and I said, this doesn't even seem right. He said, it may not seem right, but if you don't apply, you're a stinking idiot. So we applied. And due to my Schedule F going down so much, I could have gotten like $75,000. And guess how much I got? $6,000. Because it was funded at like 9%. Now, I believe this one's going to be fully funded or very close to fully funded because there's a lot of people that are working very hard on this. Guys, the problem is if this money comes available, a lot of farmers are not going to sell. They're going to get tight-fisted again. And don't forget what happened last year when we were tight-fisted all year. We never got the reward by the time that market came around in August and September. Now, you might get lucky. You might get some sort of a crop failure, drought. Last thing I'll tell you on that is Eric Snodgrass, again, good friend, extremely intelligent guy, said due to the excessively dry September and October, which was an anomaly, a statistical anomaly, how dry they were, there's strong correlation to the following summer having extreme dryness. And so I'm not telling you to market based on that. I'm telling you it might offer you some opportunity. Okay? But stay flexible, because here's the thing. In 2012, you could have been sitting around in the winter of 2011, everyone complaining and frustrated the prices weren't doing anything. And then when the markets got to 550, 650, people were selling with both fists. Right? What's the problem with that? What if you don't raise it? Be smart. Stay flexible. Any other questions? Yes, sir. What's that?
Since you mentioned cattle, what do you think about it?
I think that if I had a lot of exposure, I'm not bearish cattle, but right now you've got this real strong influence because Mexican cattle are coming across the border, right? When Mexican cattle start coming across the border, you're going to probably see that close to the turn of the calendar. The funds have been long cattle forever, about 2 years. Actually, last year they pulled them off just for a little while and then they went back down. But the funds have been long cattle forever, and the funds don't typically just stay long forever. I'm concerned that the market could roll over. Now, I'm not saying a $35 drop like you got a year ago, I don't think that. But if you're staring at 190s, $10 off the all-time highs, and your cash price is strong as could be, I know that. And this is a feeder guy selling drain. If you're selling feeders, this is the place to sell feeders, right? I would not do this without a floor underneath you. It doesn't mean that you're bearish. It means you're smart, and you still might be bullish. You just want to be able to go to bed at night. I had a guy in 2015, I met him in Amarillo, Texas. I was down there at the channel event, and he told me he made more money in his life in 2014 than he'd ever seen. All right, what happened in 2015 to the cattle market? Do you remember? It crashed like there's no tomorrow. And I saw him again the next year in Amarillo. I said, "Hey, how'd your 2015 go?" He said, "You went damn good and well. How my 2015 went?" Cattle are cyclical, and you've got this massive amount of income we can walk in right now. I'm not saying you're killing it, because some people had to pay a lot for cattle, I get it. But for the cow-calf operator that's also feeding them out, I would not go to bed at night without some sort of protection against myself. I would like to see, last thing I'll say on cattle, I'd like to see more convergence for the actual cash price in the board states, especially with feeders. I had a guy in Nebraska send me a text message 3 weeks ago. He sold a pot load of feeders, 400 weight cattle. What do you think he got for them per pound? It was like $4.40. Think about that paycheck. Why aren't we building a cattle herd? Because if someone's going to give me $1,800 for a 4-weight heifer, what in the world am I thinking about keeping her? I'm not going to get any income off her for 2 years if I'm lucky. Right? So yeah, just be cautious with cattle. I look at $190 cattle like I look at $7 corn. It doesn't stay around forever. The fundamentals could make it last a while longer, but why not keep protected, just in case? I'm not saying you're stupid about it, but just, you know, if your break even is 180 and you can buy a $182 put for $1, do it. I think it makes sense. Any other questions? If I don't get any questions, I'm heading east. I know my kids miss me. I don't know about my wife, but I know my kids miss me. Thanks for listening, guys. Shoot me an email if you got any questions on the presentation. If you got any questions on anything we talked about tonight, let me know and I'd be glad to respond. Thank you.